Okay, so welcome to our first paper, which is by William P. Franke, and the title is Apophatic Thinking and its Applications Between Exhaustion and Explosion.
Okay, thank you. Good, thank you, Wayne. Hello to everyone. In this conference, Thinking About Nothing, jointly sponsored by the Society, the Association for Continental Philosophy of Religion, and the Mystical Theology Network, I want to talk about a recent book, 2020 of mine, which is on the apophatic turn in critical thinking. That's the subtitle. The title is actually on the universality of what is not. I'll show you that in a minute, but I think it's totally on topic, and in both of the realms of the scholarly communities gathered here in this conference. But I want to say right away that from my apophatic point of view, what motivates thinking about nothing is thinking about everything in a certain sense, or at least thinking in relation to everything, which of course cannot be thought as such and only appears as a nothing. Everything would be everything and its opposite, right? So, how could you gather that all together in one? And yet, I do want to argue that apophasis in many crucial ways becomes the comprehensive paradigm in theology, philosophy, cultural theory for our times. Now, I've been listening to these wonderful papers about a wide, a vast range of traditions, historical figures that are crucial for what I assemble as apophatic tradition. Patristics, medieval mystics, female mystics of all kinds. That is the kind of work that is really the basis for the theoretical reflection that I'm trying to offer. And in fact, I've done a good bit of that work myself. And I want to just flash quickly, now if I can get back to share screen, the preceding works to the one that I'm actually going to talk about now. This was 2007, on What Cannot Be Said. This is volume 1. I should be able to get volume 2, maybe not. Then 2014, I published a book called A Philosophy of the Unsayable. And I think I'm maybe not going to try to flash these across because it just turns out to be somewhat cumbersome. I'll stop the share. There's 2018 was a comparative philosophies book, Apophatic Paths from Europe to China. This is the series of works on apophatic thinking that has led me to the book that I'm going to introduce to you now. And I should try and get my screen sharing once again to show you. We're going to go into the table of contents. This is the title that I just mentioned, and I'm going to go through it really. Here's all right, now that seems to be only the title page, sorry. But that's, this is a book that's come out last year. And it is an attempt now really to construct a theory, but it's actually not, my main point here is not to make a new theory of the apophatic, to elaborate that paradigm. That really has been done in a lot of different ways. The step that I'm taking in this book is to focus rather on applications of apophatic thinking, and to try to address the burning issues of our times in the humanities, but quite generally, sciences, culture, society. I think we find the keys in this apophatic tradition, the thinking about nothing that's been going on in so many different traditions and disciplines throughout such a long history, all of human history really. We find the keys to addressing the issues that most challenge us today. And so it really is in that spirit now that I propose to discuss with you sort of chapter by chapter, obviously in a very rapid overview, but I want you to be able to see the titles of the chapters. The first chapter is introductory, and I had it up there just here. This should be it. There we go. Okay, thinking theologically in the apophatic. Maybe I should say that theology is key to my conception here of the apophatic. The reason for that, I don't want to elevate theology above other disciplines, but what's special about theology is that it is about, very explicitly and self-consciously, what cannot be said. God transcends our discourse, our comprehension. This is at the heart of theology, even from biblical revelation, the prophets, fulminating against idolatry. This negative theological line, which I take to be really the original, the theology is negative from its origin because it is about what exceeds us, what we do not grasp. And that is a key to the kind of attitude, the posture in which apophaticism consists. So at the beginning of the book here, there is some attention devoted to the theological, thinking theologically as really the Leitfaden, the key thread for thinking these various domains which come together under the umbrella of the apophatic. And to that extent, then I see it as a kind of a coinage, very much in our time, maybe in all times, but very acutely in our own time, we find how much we need really to be able to unthink all that our concepts are offering us, to think around them, behind them, release the objectifications in which conceptualization consists, in order to reconnect with what is left out, what is inevitably excluded by conceptual definition. We have to be able to think in a relation and in a position of receptivity, to be receiving some kind of inspiration from what lies behind whatever it is that's in the focus of our thinking. That's nothing, in as much as it's nothing determinate, nothing that has been articulated, and yet it's there. In fact, it's underlying. It is what's most important for everything that then does come to definition. So after the introduction, then we come to unsaying theology in the name of all. It is really trying to think in relation to this all that is fundamental to the task of negative theology, as I understand it. Not only thinking in the desert, but really the desert is a way of clearing the space to enable the all to manifest and to impinge on our thinking. And that does mean then opening ourselves in a kind of a vulnerability to others, because this all is not an object, and it is experienced in our relationality with the others with whom we share our discourse, and even with others, inhuman others as well. This is becoming more and more acute with our environmental situation, being able to acknowledge the unknown in the form of the non-human as well. So in this second chapter then, which is still on the topic of theology, I really deal with contemporary apophatic thinkers, Catherine Keller, Elliot Wolfson, and I try to present the predicament of apophatic thinking in the present, and my own emphasis is really on the poetic. It's not so much more metaphysical rigor in trying to empty more and more, but maybe Wolfson goes that direction. There is a political liberationist agenda, which I subscribe to in Catherine Keller's work. But I really emphasize more the fact of poetic making and constructedness that is intrinsic to all of our discourses. That kind of self-reflection opens an apophatic space. It shows the limits of our own reflection. It opens us beyond them. It's a self-critical and even an infinitely self-critical type of apophasis that I'm really recommending. And then I move into a discussion in chapter 3 of Cusanus as offering in some ways an apophatic mysticism, but also pragmatic philosophy. There is a very pragmatic thrust to all of this as well. It is speculative, but it's where speculation itself takes a pragmatic kind of turn, because we cannot represent what it is that really is at stake in our thinking of nothing, in our apophatic thinking. It's more indirect than that. Cusanus gives us the image of the craftsman, his dialogues, de idiota mente, de idiota sapientia. There's this figure of the craftsman, curving, making a spoon. Making a spoon it's a crafting an object, but it's also in a way performing and repeating the act of creation. And it can become a way of contemplating the whole. It moves away from representation into a more active kind of posture. And of course, there are certain apophatic contemporary thinkers that move this direction. We have Wittgenstein's pragmatic phase as well. Karl Otto Apel would also emphasize that kind of a turn. And of course, Cusanus then offers us mathematical models that furnish symbols, really, of the coincidence of opposites, the way in which the curve of the circle stretched to infinity becomes a straight line, so that line and circle coincide. These are some of the concepts that become crucial in developing apophatic ways and methods. Cusanus gives us some concepts like the non aliud, the not other. That is, to think the other is a sort of a trap. It makes you think that you have an object that you're thinking about. It's really the not other, right? God is the not other. The apophatic is the not other. You have to really negate it in order for it to be whole and total and all. He gives us concepts like the possessed, right? The to be and to be more, all that can be actually is. These paradoxical self-deconstructing concepts I evoke here at the outset to give us a certain material to work with, a conceptuality for apophasis. Of course, it all has to be taken away. The conceptualities are going to be transcended, and they're very much self-deconstructing already in Cusanus. But the point here is really not to establish a paradigm. That is heuristic. And then in chapter 4, I move back to St. Paul and to construct a genealogy of Apophasis. St. Paul and his contemporary atheist philosophical interpreters, notably Badiou, Zizek, Agamben. The foundation of universalism that's the title really of Badiou's work on Paul. These atheist philosophers, they find in Paul a revolution in thinking that opens to the all. That's pan is really the key word in Paul. The phrases like, all have been shut up unto sin and condemnation in order that all may be saved. But it's a different all than operates in the Greek metaphysical tradition. It is broken open, right? We have the apophatic rhetoric in Paul of neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor free, neither male nor female. That's the all that Paul is opening with a neither nor apophatic type of rhetoric, the all that cannot be defined except by breaking open to an endless series of possibilities in which there is no primary term, complete plenitude. Now, something else that Paul offers us, and now I'm going to work through Agamben, is the negation of the negation. For example, what is a Christian? Well, a Christian is not under the law, right? We're free from the law, declares Paul. And yet, a Christian is not just a pagan. The Christian is not Jew, right? He's not Jewish, or she is not Jewish, and yet not Jewish, because the law, the revelation, the testament of God is absolutely relevant to everything that the Christian is as well. So it's this double negation, right? Being not circumcised, the circumcision of the heart. This is crucial for the genealogy of contemporary apophatic thinking. And in chapter 5, then, if we take Europe as the locus that has produced this apophatic thinking, the land of the logos, and actually I didn't make it explicit, but of course it's universality that is at the heart of the kind of apophaticism that I'm advocating. But of course it's a new universality, this broken open universality that refuses categorical exclusionary thinking, refuses it in order to acknowledge also its necessary place in our history, and methodologically we have to have certain categories which have definition and exclusion in order to overcome that exclusiveness. Now, we get a perspective here on Europe, because now I move into the intercultural realm, which is crucial to apophaticism and to our whole philosophical predicament, as it's radically transformed today by this encounter with Eastern among every other kind of philosophy and geographical region. But if we think about Europe, what's important to me about Europe is the way that it's already open, right? The European landmass, it's open towards Asia. The Mediterranean Sea is a passageway connecting Europe with Africa, with Asia Minor. This is the vocation of Europe, really, to be connected with the all. And the Asian princess, Europa, who is brought over, of course, by the rape of Zeus. So there is this enormous question then of violence, oppression, colonialism. And yet we should really focus as well on this vocation of Europe to go out of itself towards the other, to welcome the other. Europe has honored its external sources. All the research that's done about Greece and Jerusalem, it's the founding, the source cultures for Europe are not amalgamated, all translated into Arabic, and then it's the Arabic text of Aristotle, which is the true revelation, rather than the Greek text. The European scholarship is intensely interested in preserving its external sources. So I think that this openness to the other is also very characteristic of Europe. And this is a philosophy of the common as well. More the common than that. The universal is not the uniform. The co-munus, right? Munus, gift, the co-gifted. It's recognizing ourselves as being co-gifted with others, with all others. That is at the inspiration of
William,
as I read it. And this chapter then goes on to Celan's poetry of the wound. That's that open, we're all founded, created by our wounds, and Christentum oder Europa, it's Novalis. These are some of the threads that are brought through in order then to go on.
William, I need to stop you. So yeah, we're running out of time, so we won't have time for questions. So we've had 20 minutes now.
Oh, okay, I thought it's, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, 24 we started, I think so.
Okay, okay, all right. So you say it's over?
Yeah, unless you want to conclude quickly.
Well, this is then going towards identity politics, cognitive theory, cognitive science. These are some of the challenges on our horizon. World literature, which can be a way of assimilating everything into, the English as a steamroller, or it can be a way of becoming really aware of how to dispossess ourselves of our literature, and another way of really making it worldly. So, the other chapters really of a canonicity really unfold. Canonicity is about communicativity and connectivity across cultural space and time, and the axial age. These are the other elements. Okay, sorry.
Thank you very much. Very rich, and hopefully we'll have some great questions. I'll just stop the recording.